We're joined by Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, Fox and BTN. How are you, sir?
I am well, Jim. How are you?
I am not going to lie. I'm tired. I just got back from the West Coast swing, and we were talking about the break that you're headed to San Francisco, and I do not envy you. I do not envy you at all having to do that, because it'll be, I'm assuming, four or 5 days that you'll be out there probably.
It's a funny story, Jim. When we made the decision as a department to follow Mike Krzyzewski's final trip through the NCAA tournament, wherever it leaded, I immediately booked hotel reservations for Philadelphia and Chicago. And then I thought that they were likely to wind up in one of those spots. And then about a week and a half before the bracket was revealed, Joe Lunardi posted them as in the South region going to San Antonio. And I'm like, well, I guess I better make a reservation there. So I had one for there too. I never did. I never made one for San Francisco. I never thought they'd ship poor Mike, 75 years old, all the way out to the West Coast, but look what they did.
Oh yes, they are having fun. But yeah, if his journey continues out west, I guess he won't mind it. Something different, maybe, for his career. He's get to spend most of it in the east, on the east side. But yeah, that makes it harder to do that. We talk about the travel and all that stuff. It's not the travel; it's the time differences. The time difference makes a difference to me more than anything, than getting your body used to that.
Yeah, they're going to play, they're used to playing all their games basically at prime time or early afternoon. They're going to play, I guess technically they'll be playing prime time out in California, but it'll be 10 o'clock on their body clocks. So it is different. And I think that may be a small factor, but I think the big factor is Texas Tech and how beautifully they play defense and how together they are and how hard they are to crack and how Duke's problem as a team, every team has a weakness. Their weakness is offensive generation. They have great offensive players, but sometimes it's hard to get going because they don't have a great point guard. Jeremy Roach, who lines up at point guard, has had some really good games lately, but he's still not a point guard. He doesn't create offense. He can bring the ball across the half court line and pass the ball, but he doesn't generate offense. And that's a challenge for them. And so they sometimes try to use Paolo Banchero, their power forward, to do that. They sometimes use Wendell Moore, their small forward, what you would call a small forward or a wing, to do that. But they can't do it much off the point guard position, and that causes some issues for them. And I think it'll be a particular issue against Texas Tech. Now, maybe it's an advantage that they don't play conventionally and that they have to generate from other directions, because maybe that forces Texas Tech into some uncomfortable matchups, that sort of thing. But it's hard to know that until you actually get out there.
And also, you've got a lot of Duke's main cast of characters are freshmen, which that just brings on the freshman aspect of not having the experience. And this is big game. These are the big games of all big games. Does it matter? Usually it does. But and I would think that is a part of what has kept Texas Tech going. Their coach is 64 years old and in his first Power 5 job, for God's sake. So they've got length on their sides, so to speak.
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting about this Duke team is that even though they have some guys, their primary players, you're right, Jim, are freshmen. I mean, the core of their team are freshmen. When you look at Paolo Banchero, AJ Griffin, Trevor Keels, those guys are all freshmen. But they have some guys who played before. Mark Williams is a sophomore. Moore, who I mentioned before, is a junior. The thing is, Jim, those guys are never in the tournament because a year ago they had, first of all, they weren't probably going to make it. They were struggling to try to get in. And then in the middle of the ACC tournament, they had a big COVID outbreak. So they shut down their season. And so they weren't in the tournament then. last year when Williams and Moore were on the team, and Roach. And the year before, when it was just Moore who was a member of the team, of course, there was no tournament. And Moore would have been in the tournament that year, and they would have been good. They would have been a 2 or a 3 seed with a chance to do well. But that was not the case. So as a result, you have this circumstance where you have some veteran guys, but they're just as new to this experience of chasing a championship as the freshmen are.
Yeah, and so now we've got but also you've got a coach on the other side who I mentioned he's 64 years old, but he doesn't have the experience as far as I was just looking at a stat. It had Division I seasons. It was a tale of the tape between Mike Krzyzewski and oh my gosh, Mark Adams. 47 Division I seasons, 1 for Mark Adams, and I was like, okay, well, that one kind of jumps out a little bit, but and every time I see him on TV, and I'm like, who is that? It's just I can't get past because I never saw him in my life, and all of a sudden, boom, there he is, Texas Tech head coach. What an odd story that is.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did not know Adams, really of Adams, until he was the key defensive coordinator or whatever you want to call him on the 19 Texas Tech team. And that's when I really became aware of him. But they were showing Purdue and its various foibles in the NCAA tournament and the matchups that they had previously with Chris Beard at Texas Tech in I think it was the Sweet 16 in 18, and in 16 they played against Little Rock with Beard, and I saw a tape of Little Rock celebrating that comeback and that victory over the Boilermakers, and Adams was in the middle of it. So I didn't realize that he was a big part of that too. So he has been in the tournament before, and he's had success. I mean, he played in he coached in the championship game. He just wasn't the guy calling the shots.
Yeah, it's just always amazing when people like that who overnight success, so to speak, that have been around for. Also, some notice that he used to own a couple of hockey teams or something crazy.
Yeah, I don't know his personal story that well.
I've got to read through that. I think there's a story on the Sporting News I've got to get read through on that part, but it looks hilarious. But thoughts on the NCAA tournament up to now? First full weekend in. How'd you do? How do you feel? The brackets hit. Where are you there?
Well, I didn't do great, but I do have all my Final Four teams available, so that's good.
That's big. That's big.
And honestly, I mean, not that it means that they're going, but the brackets have opened up for some of them. I think that if you look at Kansas in the Midwest, they now have 2 double-digit seeds in the opposite game that they would have to play in the Elite Eight. Now, I think Miami is terrific, and they warranted a number 11 seed because they are so inconsistent. But when they're at their best, they're terrific. I mean, they destroyed Auburn, embarrassed them really in the Sunday second round game. And then I have Purdue, and Purdue's next game is against a 15 seed. And who would have expected that? They were supposed to be playing Kentucky now and having to figure out how to deal with Oscar Tshiebwe. Now they just have to attack a zone defense, and if they can conquer that, they should be into the Elite Eight. So, and of course, Baylor's gone, so they don't have to worry about playing them. I mean, UCLA and North Carolina are both significant teams and obviously overwhelming programs. So it's not going to be easy, but it's not going to be, again, what it could have been. And in the West region, I had Gonzaga; they're still alive, and Arizona in the South, and by the skin of their teeth, they are alive, and they no longer have to deal with the possibility of playing Tennessee. So it's things have gone pretty well for some of those 1 seeds that I have. So the early round carnage that my bracket endured, maybe it won't turn out to be so bad.
Yeah, I guess there's no reason to do any reseeding. The suggestion of reseeding after weekends, because it is what it is now, right? I mean, these teams are set.
That's often been suggested, and I like that they went to the one versus four, 2 versus 3 concept. If they all were to get there, I like that. But I don't. The bracket is too important to the tournament's to the tournament's popularity to ever go away from that for the sake of, hey, you know what? We've had championship games that look lopsided on paper before that turned out to be great. We've had championship games that look like great duels that turned out to be lopsided. I mean, Duke in 1991, I think, was a 3 seed. Or excuse me, 1990. I think they were a 3 seed in 1990, and Vegas was a 1. And it was a 30-point game. How do you get away from that? Well, tell Vegas to play lesser. Tell them to play worse. You guys can't go out there and kick them by 30. We're not having that. No, I mean, that's just how it goes. So, again, I mean, the fact that Miami is an 11 seed, if they're at their best, they're as good as anybody on the top 4 lines. They just weren't at their best often enough. But now those guys have figured out that it matters to play well every night, and they're playing well almost every night.
How about Notre Dame and Oklahoma? They were a 4 and 5 seed on the women's side, a 4 and 5 seed. The Notre Dame women scored like 108 or 116. I can't remember how many points it was, but they win by like 44 points. A 4 and a 5 seed game. That was mind-boggling.
Pretty amazing. Absolutely. There have been some upsets in the women's tournament. Really. Which is really rare, and I think that's great for the game. When they have that, they've always had the great players flowing mostly to the great teams. Well, now we have more great teams. South Carolina is now a destination. Louisville is a destination. Obviously, Connecticut has been forever. The Big Ten teams are starting to get really good players, and obviously Stanford is a destination for multiple reasons. And so I think that's been a good thing to even it out more rather than have Connecticut dominate everybody all the time. And then when we start to see lower seeds win, like Princeton, I think that's great for the women's game. I think it's absolutely been wonderful. I personally would like to see more of it, and it's hard for me to do that under these circumstances when I'm working 80 to 100 hours a week on the men's tournament. But, they've chosen to run simultaneously. I've always thought that it would be really wise for them to have a tournament that is in a separate window, because then people who love women's college basketball, like me, would have the time and spare time if it's an avocation, or obviously if you're working on it, your vocation. But I can't do both. It's very unfortunate, and I don't understand why they do that. I don't understand the value in running simultaneously. It doesn't. Look at the Women's College World Series. Did the Women's College World Series run at the same time as the Men's College World Series? No. And the Women's College World Series has continued to escalate in popularity. It's probably really close, on par, if not more so, popular than the Men's College World Series, because they have their own time slot, and there's plenty of oxygen and time to pay attention to it for everybody. I don't understand the continuation of the overlap of the men's and women's tournament. That doesn't make sense to me.